Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new Elder Scrolls Online character build video with me, Sherman. Today guys, I bring you the Shadow Assassin Rogue character. And disclaimer, this is a roleplay, casual play build. This is not meant for meta play. Now moving on, the Shadow Assassin Rogues are a specialized assassin type that use both magic and blade, you could say, physical and magic abilities to bring fear and chaos to their enemies when they are sent out to hunt them and kill them. Now these are not like rangers, these are actually rogues, these are assassins, so they play a little bit different than the typical rogue that I've done so far, and you guys will see that in a second. So let's go ahead and take a look at this character. We are a dark elf with this. Now you can be any race with this, and any race works. We are the, like I said, Shadow Assassin Rogue. We are a Nightblade, and this is primarily a damage dealer. As you can see, we have 64 points in the stamina. This gives us a 31k stamina pool with a 23k magic, a 20k health. Now this can also be a tank and a healer as well. And to do that, to play this as a tank, you're going to take the 64 points out of stamina, put enough into health to give you around 30k. And then you're going to do the same thing to play a Magicka person. You're going to take the 64 out of stamina and you're going to put it all into Magicka. That way you get that higher Magicka pool, so you have that higher resource for healing. Alright, now going over our recovery rates, we do have 1,022 mag recovery, 393 health recovery, a 712 stam recovery. Now, spell damage is 1994 with a 42% spell crit. We do have a 2434 weapon damage with a 47% weapon crit, and a 13,000 spell resist with a 12,000 physical resist. This is a light armor build. That's why it's so much different from what you guys have seen so far. We are using the Lover Mundus Stone. This gives us increased spell and physical penetration. And we also have Minor Berserk at all times from the Slimecraw monster set. And we are using Tri-Stat food primarily. And the reason for that is to give us all three resources: Magicka, Stamina, Health, all of them. Alright, jumping over to our inventory and equipment. We use tripods for when we're tanking. I'm going to close this out. Shush. And we use spell power pots for when we're playing healer, and we use warrior power pots for when we're playing damage dealer. Now, like I said, we do use the food, and longfin pasty with melon sauce is a really good option for that. You can use Dubious Cameron Throne and Witchmother's Potent Brew with this character, except this just works better like this. So, alright, going over the monster set. We are using the Slimecraw's monster set. And the reason for this is the 1 and 2 piece, or the 1 piece itself gives us 2 benefits, spell and weapon crit. And in the 2 piece, we gain Minor Berserk, at all times increasing your damage done by 8%. And then our body piece, we are using a set called Night Mother's Gaze. Now this one, on the 2 piece, gives us weapon crit, 3 piece weapon damage, 4 piece weapon crit, and the 5 piece. When you deal critical damage, you apply major fracture to the enemy, reducing their physical resistance by 50 to 80 for 6 seconds. Now this just gives you a really good capability to just shred right through the person's resistances and deal damage. The next set we're running is called War Maidens. Now, a lot of people probably guessed this, but War Maidens is a very powerful set. You get spell critical on the 2 piece, 3 piece max magicka, 4 piece spell damage, and the 5 piece adds 400 spell damage to your magic damage abilities. We use a lot of magic damage abilities along with physical damage abilities. So that's how we can boost that higher. Now, going over the traits and enchants and armor type. This is a light armor build, so we are wearing light armor in the helm, the shoulders, the gloves, the boots, and the belt. This way we can get that 5 pieces of light armor, and then our chest is going to be heavy and our legs are going to be medium. And that is going to give us a good amount of resistance value, and that's how we can reach that 13k, 12k survivability. Now, going over the traits. On the monster set, we are using Invigorating, On the helm, this is going to give us a little bit more health, stamina, and mag recovery. This gives us better resource management with our character. And we do use tri-stat so we can hybridize better into all three roles, but also we play more effectively with magic and stamina with this. Moving on to the shoulders, we are using a max stamina divines. Now this is so we can maximize our stamina pool, and to the divine Mundus Stone is to give us more effective Mundus Stone effect. So onto the chest, we are using a reinforced with tri-stat heavy piece. The heavy chest is going to give us higher resistances period on our body, and the reinforced is going to make that resistance as high as possible, which is 32-15. The tri-stat is there again to hybridize and play with both magic and stamina more effectively. Moving on to the gloves, we are using Divine's max stamina. The max stamina to boost our stamina pool, Divines to boost the effect of Mundus Stone. The belt and the boots are that way as well. Max stamina with the Divines. This way we can, again, maximize stamina pool with the higher Mundus Stone effect. Now, moving on to the legs, we are using Invigorating medium armor. This is going to give us that good recovery rates, again, with the Invigorating. And then on top of that, the higher resource pools in Magicka, stamina, and health. Alright, moving on to the jewelry, we are running 2 tri-rune rings here, one with a weapon damage enchant. I believe they're both weapon damage enchants, yes they are. The reason for this is this way we get that higher weapon damage output, but we also get that ability to hybridize better and to use Magicka stamina better for our character type. And then on the necklace, we are using a Bloodthirsty with a mag recovery. This will increase our magic recovery, but it also increases our damage against enemies under 25% health by 10%. Now, when I said this is going to be different than the other rogue types, when I do assassin types, most of them will be using dual wield and bow. Very similar to rangers because of how they work, but on top of that, most rogue types will be using dual wield both bars. So, alright, so on the front bar we are using dual daggers here, one sharpened with a poison damage enchant, the other one is Nerdhoned with a absorbed stamina enchant. You can see our stamina recovery is lower than our mag recovery, so we want to be able to get more stamina back somehow, so this is how we're going to do that with that absorbed stamina enchant. But this is also Nerdhoned, and this increases the damage of this weapon by 15%, and we also get 6% of our offhand weapon damage applied to our damage, so this allows us to get higher weapon damage a little bit more effectively. Alright, moving on to the other one. We are using a War Maiden's Bow infused with a weapon and spell damage enchant. The weapon and spell damage enchant is basically to apply that we get both weapon and spell damage applied to our character more effectively with the infused enchant, and then on top of that we get a higher amount of weapon and spell damage because it's infused trait. Alright, now that you guys have seen that, let's go over the skills on our bars, starting with the class skills. We do take all the physical damage class our active and ultimate abilities. This way we can use both magic and stamina more effectively. So as you can see, we do use Incapacitating Strikes on our front bar. This does physical damage or disease damage. We also use Killer's Blade, which is a stamina morph. We use Ambush, which is a stamina morph. And we use Relentless Focus, which is a stamina morph. Now moving on to the next one, the Shadow line. We have Suprise Attack. This is a shadow or a magic ability, or stamina ability, sorry. So we use mostly stamina for our physical damage side. We do use some magic abilities. But we do take every active and passive ability so we can play more effectively into all 3 roles. We take the passive so we can take advantage of every passive line we can. When we're moving on to weapons, we do primarily use dual wield and bows, so we do unlock those passives and active abilities on ultimate, along with with the bow side, we do the ultimate, active abilities, and passives. Don't even know what's going on here. Armor, we are a light armor build, so we do take all the light armor passives and the active ability. When it comes to medium armor, we take the top 3, or the top 2 and the bottom one. This way we can take advantage of those passives in our character's design. Same thing with heavy armor, we take the top 3. Moving on to world skills, soul magic, We do use the I do use the ultimate active ability and the 3 passives, but the first passive and these 2 abilities are optional. Fighter's Guild. We do take the ultimate active abilities and passives. These help us play more effectively into our character's design. Same thing with the Mage's Guild. So we can play all 3 roles more effectively, but we can also play in different environments more effectively. That means both PvE and PvP. And then the Sigic Order, we do the same thing. And then on Undaunted, I take all the active abilities and the passives. This way I can use synergies at any time within my group. The only one I don't use is Inner Beast, and that's because it's a taunt, and I only use that when I'm tanking. Alright, and then make sure you get the 2 passives here. They are very important. Moving on to the Alliance War, I take the ones that best reflect my ability to play PvE, not PvP, because I don't play there too often. So I primarily take the ones that best work in this environment. So the top 2 active abilities and passive there, and then over here I use the ultimate 2 active abilities and the 1 passive, because I can take advantage of all those in PvE. Moving on to racials. Dark Elf. We get Dynamic, which increases our max magic and stamina by 1875. This allows us to be a hybrid character better. Resist Flame increases our flame resistance by 2310, and we gain immunity to burning status effect. And then also Ruination increases weapon and spell damage by 258. Now moving on to crafting. Alchemy, medicinal use. When using potions, resulting effects last 30% longer. And then on to the provisioning side, we use Gourmand and Connoisseur. These both make our food and drinks last 20 minutes longer, but drinks are primarily like Dubious Cameron Throne, Witchmother's Brew, or Artaeum, not Artaeum Takeaway Broth, and the other one, because those are foods. But this way we can use the Witchmother's Potent Brew and Dubious Cameron Throne and take advantage of that 20-minute duration. Going over the skills we have on our bars, starting with the first ability, we do use Ambush. Now this one will allow us to jump to our target, dealing X amount of damage when we hit them, and we also apply minor vulnerability to them, increasing their damage taken by 8% for 8 seconds. It also grants us Empower, increasing our next light attack done by 40%. So you're going to teleport, light attack right afterwards. This way you get that minor vulnerability and that light attack with that increased damage. The next ability we have on our bar is called Bloodthirsty, and the reason we use this deals X amount of damage to the enemy in 5 consecutive hits. The final hit deals 300% damage and heals us for 67% of the damage caused. Next ability is called Surprise Attack. This does X amount of damage to the enemy. If you are flanking them, that means attacking them from the side or from the back, you will apply a small armor penetration debuff, which reduces their physical resistance by 5% for 10 seconds, and it's attacking from Surprise Attack while sneaking, invisible, or whatever, stuns the enemy for 3 seconds and sets them off balance by 5. Moving on to the next ability, we are using Crippling Grasp. Now, the reason we use Crippling Grasp is this deals X amount of damage up front, it deals X amount of damage over 10 seconds, and it immobilizes the enemy for 2 of those seconds and reduces their movement speed by 30% for 4 seconds. This just allows us to keep an eye on those targets when they're moving around and they're moving slower, so we can actually get to them quicker and kill them faster. Next ability we have is called Killer's Blade. This will deal disease damage and 300% more damage when the enemy is below 25% health. It is considered an execute. It also heals you for X amount if the enemy dies within 2 seconds of being struck. That's a really nice benefit. And then the next ability we have is called Incapacitating Strikes. This is our ultimate. This deals disease damage to the enemy, and whenever you hit them with this, the next attacks you deal in within 6 seconds will deal 20% more. If you use this at 120 ultimate, you will stun or silence the enemy for 3 seconds, and then while slotted, anytime that you use a debuff basically, or deal damage to the enemy when they have a negative effect applied to them, you will gain 100 magic and stamina back. When you apply things like Ambush, that puts a minor debuff on them. That'll also give this application, so you get that 100 magic and stamina back every time you light attack or heavy attack. Alright, moving on to the back bar, we have Rearming Trap. This deals This takes 1.5 seconds to arm. Once you set it down, it deals X amount of damage up front, X amount of damage over 6 seconds, and it also immobilizes enemies for 6 seconds if they can be immobilized, and grants you minor force, increasing your critical damage by 10%. After being triggered, the trap resets itself and can be triggered one more time. The next ability we use is called Poison Injection. This does X amount of damage up front, X amount of damage over 10 seconds, and the damage over time deals up to 260% more to enemies under 50% health. Then we have Endless Hail. This deals X amount of damage every 0.5 seconds for 10 seconds. So it's a very good way to keep our enchant applied, but also to keep that damage applied more effectively. Our next ability is a Shadow Morph. It's called Dark Shade, and this one, you summon a shade version of yourself to attack the enemy for 20 seconds. The shade deals magic damage and occasionally whirlwinds all enemies around it, dealing more magic damage, and the shade afflicts minor maim, reducing the enemy's damage done by 15% for 4 seconds. This ability scales off your highest offensive stat, so it actually scales off our max stamina, but since it deals magica damage and we get that higher penetration value to magica because of our character's design, it really plays well into this. Wearing the light armor. The next ability we use is called Leeching Strikes. This deals, what this does is this basically gives you the ability to steal life from your enemies. So every light and heavy attack will heal you for 1640 and restore 106 stamina for 20 seconds. Fully charged heavy attacks restore twice the amount. When the effect comes to a close, it will restore X amount of stamina depending on how long it was lasting. But if you let it last the full duration, it gives you 4,270 stamina. Our next ultimate is a floater ultimate, but Toxic Barrage is a very good one, and you unleash a barrage of arrows at the enemy, dealing X amount of poison damage over 4.1 seconds. After the barrage ends, you poison the enemy, dealing an additional X amount of damage over 8 seconds. You can move at full speed and are immune to all disabling effects while channeling this attack. So you can move while doing this. So it's really nice. Alright, now that I've shown you guys that, I'm going to go over the champion level system here, where we have our champion points placed, starting with the red tree or the warrior tree. And starting with the steed, we have 56 into Ironclad, reducing damage taken from direct damage attacks by 20%. We do have 10 into Spell Shield. This increases our spell resistance by 1,003. And then moving on to the middle tree, the lady tree, we have 28 into Light Armor Focus. This increases physical resistance by 2542 while wearing 5 or more pieces of light armor. We have 31 into Thick Skin, which reduces your damage taken from damage over time effects by 13%. We have 43 into Hardy, which reduces your damage taken from physical poison disease damage by 10%. And then 43 into Elemental Defender, which reduces your damage taken from Flame Frost, Shock, and magic damage. I'm going to check something real quick, guys. I want to just try a little experiment here and see if this is an improvement overall. And that is not. That's why I had it set up that way. Now I remember. Sorry, every one of my builds, I use a different layout for the red tree, depending on the how things work. And with this one, it does work better like this. So. Alright, moving on to the final red tree, the Lord. We have 40 in a Bastion. This increases the effectiveness of your damage shields by 16%. And then we have 19 in a Quick Recovery, increasing your healing received by 5%. Moving on to the green tree, we have 40 in a Warlord. This reduces break free cost by 16%, 16 in a Sprinter, reducing sprint cost by 10%, and 16 in a Bashing Focus, reducing your bash cost by 10%. Moving on over here, we have 75 in a Mooncalf. This increases Stam recovery by 14%, 43 in Arcanus, increasing mag recovery by 10%. And then moving on to the final green tree, or the Thief tree. So I'm going to do this real quick. So this is the Warrior tree, Thief tree, Mage's tree. Each of them has 3 constellations related to them that give you different benefits. So here we have 40 in the Tumbling, reducing dodge roll cost, and 40 in the Shadow War, reducing block cost. 16% in both. Moving on to the blue tree or the mage's tree with the first one, the apprentice, we have 43 in the blessed. This increases healing done by 10%. 23 in the elfborn, increasing critical damage and critical healing with magic abilities by 10%. 43 in the elemental expert, increasing your flame frost shock and magic damage done by 10%. And then moving on to the middle here, we have 35 in the physical weapon expert. This increases your damage done with light and heavy attacks from two-handed, one-handed and shield, dual-wield bow weapons, and werewolf form by 20%. We also have 40 in the Master at Arms, increasing your damage done with direct damage attacks by 16%. This does unlock Ruination, or Retaliation, Reposit, and Butcher. We also over here unlock Vengeance, Spell Precision, and Foresight. Moving on to the final blue tree, or Ritual tree, we have 43 in the Mighty, increasing your physical poison and disease damage done by 10%. 23 in the Precise Strikes, increasing critical damage and critical healing by 10%, and then 20 in the Thaumaturgy, increasing your damage done with damage over time effects by 9%. This will unlock Opportunist, Perfect Strike, and Exploiter passives. Alright, so now that I've shown you guys the champion system, the skills, the gear, the enchants, traits, all that stuff, we are going to do two quick parses. One on this little guy here to represent what your damage would look like in a dungeon scenario, and up there on the big guy, which will represent what your damage would look like on an organized group. So, first things first, we are going to drink our potion. We are going to activate our buffs and stuff. And then we are just going to go through our rotation here. And yes, this is my primary spammable with this character, so I can keep a constant heal. And as you can see, we did about 24k DPS. And this is playing a hybrid type character that deals both magic and stamina damage. A lot of people question that a lot of times and think that it doesn't work. It does work. So, moving on to the big guy, we are going to wait for our resources to reactivate. But I'll show you guys this rotation as well. And this one I'm going to activate both the synergies and the ultimate abilities I have, so you guys can see the damage output with this. Okay, so potion, buff, I did that too early. But as you can see, we can deal about 30k DPS with this effectively most of the time. 30 to 35k, somewhere in there. If you can keep the rotation really good, you can do about 35k DPS with this. Now, while that's doing its thing and it's coming out of combat, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys the parse from the first enemy we fought, that first target skeleton. And as you can see, our effective weapon damage was 3463 with a 63% weapon crit, 80% critical damage, 10,000 penetration value. Now, our damage from most of our abilities is quite a lot, and some people will even point out that our Crippling Grasp does a decent amount of damage over time and a decent amount of damage on initial hit. Now, the same thing can be said on our Magicka side, because we do go to 46 spell damage, 42% spell crit, 80% critical damage, and we have 9,000 spell penetration. And that's on a small target. Now, we are going to swap over to the big guy, and everything is going to change here, because our max stamina, max health, Magicka changes and everything. So our max Magicka goes to 24k, we go to almost 3k spell damage, 48% spell crit, with an 80% critical damage, and we had not higher than 9,000 spell penetration. And as you can see over here, our Crippling Grasp was actually dealing more damage on criticals than on average, and then the same thing goes with Crippling Grasp initial hit. It did actually more damage when it would hit sometimes up front. Now, each ability deals a different type of damage type, so it It's reflected here. But our weapon stuff, we go to 33k stamina with a 4,087 weapon damage, 63% weapon crit. And you can see here it doesn't show our physical pain in the proper amount. And that's because on this target dummy, we actually get 100% penetration value. That's why our damage looks so much better on this one than on this one, even though they're the same. Alright, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to respec this a little bit into a more effective solo build. And I'm going to show you guys what this thing will look like in a dungeon. So the only thing I'm going to change is on the front bar. I'm actually going to equip Dark Cloak where our Suprise Attack is, and I'm going to move this over and get rid of our Crippling Grasp, and I'm actually going to put a damage shield on the back bar, or on the front bar here, called Bone Shield. Now, one of the things that we do lose with this, and I don't want to lose that, is my Max Magicka, so we are going to go back over here, we're going to grab Funnel Health, and we're going to replace Killer's Blade. Now, you guys are probably wondering why I replace Killer's Blade when it's an Execute. It's because I want to have a greater survivability while I'm solo playing. I'm not so worried about dealing a lot of damage. I'm more concerned with having a good mix of character play. So good damage, good survivability, good tanking capacity. Now you guys are going to ask how I'm going to survive so well with my resistances lower. My resistances are actually going to go higher because the way the Nightblade works with its resistance buff. See, I use Dark Cloak, and Dark Cloak will heal me over time, but it also give me it will also give me my resistance buff from the Shadow line called Shadow Barrier. And it only lasts 7.5 seconds, but I will be casting it enough to keep my physical and spell resist applied all the time. So. And being a solo person, being a person who can play solo, means that you're a tank, a healer, and damage dealer in one. So you want to be able to do all three effects effectively. Most of the time when I do solo play, I do use tripods because it's more effective that way. But in this case, we are going to be using the warrior power pods. And I need to get my shade up. And the reason I'm going through so much Magicka, by the way, I equipped the wrong shield. So. And I'll fix that before we go in and fight the boss. Alright, so let me fix that real quick. So I should have been using my light armor shield with the harness Magicka. This way I get magic back whenever I take ranged damage. So it helps me with my sustainability, and also I'm not burning through stamina popping a shield. I don't know where he is. Where are you hiding, Ugly? Where are you? You're right there in front of me the whole time. I'm hitting the wrong button. I'm trying to do my ultimate. Alright. Next spew, he's gonna kill me because I'm gonna let him do that. Are you gonna do that? Okay, here we go. We're gonna let him kill me, but this way I can just show you guys this build does work effectively, like I like I said it was. It works out really well, and the fact that it's a light armor build really plays into that whole idea of using both magic and stamina more effectively. It just allows for greater spell penetration with the greater spell damage. The fact that we are using War Maidens makes every magic damage ability we use, like Funnel Health, deal more damage, but it also, we get that higher healing factor from it. And every magic ability we use, like Refreshing Path, this is a magic ability, but it's not magic damage. But we can still heal from this really well, our groups and stuff like that. This deals magic damage, so we get that 450 extra spell damage, or 400 extra spell damage for those abilities. And that's why I like this combination so well, is it works very good for what it does. Alright, so that is it for this build. This is the Shadow Assassin Rogue. You guys can decide from here if you like it or not, and that leads us to the next thing. If you guys like this video, go ahead and hit that like button. If you guys want to see more videos by me, you can subscribe. Other than that, I want to thank you all for watching. Until next time, have a wonderful day, and this guy might see you in game. Bye.